There's a marking you don't see very often. Arsenal Firearms, we've got the Strike 1. Long, storied, difficult to get a hold of gun. Coming up next on GBGuns. Cool little case here. It's lockable and it's got the push-pull type thing that opens one way on one side, the other on the other. It's even spring-loaded. Kind of a nice extra touch to it. These things were first teased or rumored in 2014 with images of Russian Spetsnaz using them. Larry Vickers went over to Italy and visited the factory, and there was all this hype about them. The initial MSRP was supposed to be 3,000 euros, which at the time was about $4,000. And there was a little bit of talk, and then poof, they were gone. I think I figured out why. Manual's standard 4-color. And that is, according to the internet, and of course, nobody ever trusts the internet. That's why, once again, don't ask me about pricing or specs on these, just go look it up. Strike 1, Arsenal Firearms came into an issue with the name Arsenal, because a lot of people were thinking of the Arsenal factory in Bulgaria. And so renamed to Archon, and somehow in the process, the manufacturing went from Italy at Tanfoglio to Germany, Hungary, and the US with the Archon Type B. US barrel, Hungarian slide, German frame. I've seen guns that have German slides in Hungarian frames. Best I can tell, it is part of the Gecko Norma Ruag mega conglomerate that is, well, essentially like Raytheon here in the US, in that they just make everything defense related, including firearms for personal use, which Raytheon of course doesn't, but the Gecko thing does. So, enough of that. More on that in another video. I'm going to compare the two for you and show you side by side, because I was personally curious and hadn't seen any comparisons out there. Here's our gun. Clear. We get 2 magazines, or 17 round magazines. In this pouch, you get a different mag release. This is actually the one that shipped in the gun. I swapped it. More on that in a bit. And this thing, which is actually a pretty cool, legit cleaning kit. And the carrier tube is what serves as your handle. All these pieces threaded in the handle. So you've got your swab, your brass brush, your soft nylon brush, and rods with jag. Pretty cool, complete setup there. But we're here for the gun. Let me get the case out of the way and we'll take a look at the Strike 1. So the Strike 1 was the brainchild of some Russian inventors that went to Italy to have it manufactured, and uses a different locking system than most everything else out there. I believe it's the Bergman. Don't quote me on that though, but if you watch the barrel, you notice it doesn't tilt and drop down like the Browning system. It just moves straight back a little bit and unlocks. As a result, it doesn't need to sit as high because there doesn't need to be room for it to pivot. You have less weight shifting, much like in the ground power system, and it's a faster, smoother lock, and with the less weight shifting you actually feel less recoil in the hand, in theory. Big 4.9 inch barrel. These are rumored to be plus P plus rated for some of the special Russian ammunition. Barrel looks to be fairly thick. I'm not sure if I buy its plus P plus. It doesn't have any plus P markings on it. I didn't see anything in the manual, though I admit I didn't scour every page. Anyways, a lot of difference about this gun. There's a lot of things on here that are pretty unique. So let's start almost at the front. Since Google seems to think that when I point the firearm at a camera to show you the muzzle, I'm either supporting the idea of self-harm by others, or harm to others. So now we're restricted to do this angle. We see we've got cognate serrations up front, as well as this swoopy nose cut that works for an over-the-top grab quite well. I think it might also be part of the stylization of it. Come on this end, we can see our barrel extends a little bit beyond the slide. Does not have a target crown cut. There's maybe a little bit of radius there, but not much else. Plastic guide rod and a squared off front end. You might also notice as I rotate the gun that there are dots on the front of the sights. Actually, there's no shadow there. You can see there's a dot on the front of the front sight post and on the rear. Not sure what that's about. Kind of interesting. Plenty of rail space underneath the frame. Excuse the noise. That is Tactikitty and Tactikitty Jr. having a disagreement on the AR versus AK debate. We've got some texturing on the front strap for the support hand finger grip method of shooting. Not one that I subscribe to, but it is popular in some places, and it's definitely aggressive. Texturing on the frame is smart. It's lateral, as it should be, since the gun is trying to rock this way. You want that. Also have a little bit of lateral on the rear, and this stuff for the wiggle, getting your hand in place. Not very aggressive, although it looks plenty deep. It doesn't really hold my hand all that tightly. Our magazine release is shielded. You can see right around that edge there a little bit, and it is left side, right side, or ambi. We've swapped to the ambi. Swapping out, it's not as easy as it is in the Type B. There's this 16-step separate manual to show you how to swap the magazine release. It doesn't take all of those steps. It's not quite that hard, but is a rather involved process that took me a minute. It's not something I care to do over and over again. Looking underneath the bottom of the frame, we can see we've got a generous flaring of magwell. You also have a cutout here for grip and strip if you are unfamiliar with how to properly clear a Type 3 malfunction. Slide to frame up front. We have a little side to side, a little bit up and down. Our slide stop and release is flattened on the bottom to work as a stop and textured on the top to work as a release. We've got some memory points here. This interesting little fin that sits in the back, I remember when I first saw concept photos of the gun, I was curious why they would do that. They say it's something to do with relaxing your hand or something like that. It looked to me like it would be uncomfortable. From my experience with the Archon Type B, I can say you hardly even notice it. We do have a nice extended beaver tail here to prevent getting your hand bit, and we have a striker tail sticking out as an indicator that the gun is cocked. See, it goes away once fired. The rear sight mounts as part of that end plate there, which is a little funky. Coming around the right side of the gun, there's our ambi mag release that I installed. Once again, it comes flush with just the left side if you want. Little tiny ejection port and very faint laser markings. This particular gun was advertised as a second production run. The serial number starts with a 2, which makes me think that might be true. But other than that, these guns are pretty much gone. As far as why and all that, I'll get into that in the comparison video. Next, we'll field strip the Strike 1 and take a look inside at that different operating system. Field stripping is similar to the Archon Type B. You want to make sure that your striker has been released, aka fired the gun, and then it's empty. Our external extractor here also leaves a little window in the barrel to potentially see if there's a casing in there. With it back, I found just pulling back a little bit helps. Manual doesn't say you have to, but pulling back a little takes some pressure off. You're going to push on this pin, pops to the other side. Once again, with a little bit of rearward pressure, we're going to pull that pin and it locks. It's kept in the frame. Once that's out, the slide comes off. Now this is the Airgall edition or version that's talked about so much because that internal frame is Airgall aluminum, also known as 7075 T6 when it's heat treated. They made quite a bit of talk about why they chose the Airgall and that the Airgall was so magical. I'm just going to call it 7075. And you can tell it's machined aluminum. Nice, clean, slick, flat machining, and very thin rail, but a rail that extends the whole length other than the dust cover. It's quite long. Our feed ramp is built into that block there, and our ejector, of course, is just a solid plate that's mounted there. There's a little bit of spring tension here. I don't know why that is separate. So if we can zoom in, show you that. That piece is interesting. Not sure why they did it that way. And this, of course, is part of our mechanism that rubs on the striker safety. That's what works as your drop safety. That's going to be rubbing on this wedge piece in the back here. So, very interesting construction. Choice of aluminum on the inside instead of steel. But, I don't know. We'll see how good it is. Pulled our guide rod out. It is a plastic guide rod with a flat coil spring. And now we can pull our locking block out, this funky Y-shaped piece. And now the barrel is free to go forward a little bit, to tilt it, and pull back. Looking inside our slide, we can see in European style, we've got the serial number matched on the slide itself. Very clean construction, very nicely done. Like I said, as I understand, these are made by Tanfoglio, or were manufactured by Tanfoglio, who, though perhaps most known for their Witness super affordable guns, also makes some very high-end race guns. We've tried a couple times to get our hands on them for the channel here, and just did not get any manufacturer support. The coating or texture on this looks cast. It just has a very kind of rough feel to it. We'll grab a box of Nosler and we'll check for chamber support. And as always, we're looking at see how well the chamber supports the cartridge. We do that because if you use reloads or higher pressure rounds, especially like this gun, which is claimed to be +P+ rated, though once again it's not marked that on the barrel, so I'm not going to test it. Wherever the case is not supported is where you're going to have your rupture. And if we look underneath here, we can see, get some zoom in there, get our camera to play along. See how you can see the casing there up past the shoulder just a little bit? That is not a fully supported chamber. So that means if the case were to rupture during firing, that's where it would likely blow out instead of forcing everything out the end of the barrel, which results in an explosion in your hand and a less than successful range day. So I'm not going to be using any reloads or questionable cased ammunition in this. The barrel itself, though, is beautifully done. I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker for the longer barrels. Like I said, 4.9-inch barrel. That gives you long sight radius, which makes shooting it easier. Also gives you a great potential for well, you're getting more velocity, so rounds are going to hit harder and definitely perform as intended. Overall construction is just like that Type B, just different grade of machining, I guess you could say. If you get that on there, pop the pin back in, and now we're back together. That sound, it's nice, thick, and dense. It sounds very solid. The trigger, we've got a little bit of take up here play, and it breaks. Reset. It's the very end. Yep, it's basically where the play and begins again on the way back out. The reset is very soft, hardly tactile. But overall, smooth feeling gun. Not as nice of a trigger, I'd say, as the other one. But pretty cool gun. I'm very lucky to have gotten my hands on one of these. I bought it, I saw it popped up, and snatched it up. Ready or not wallet. Here it was. Fortunately, it was not the original $4,000 MSRP that folks were asking for. But very interesting piece. I talked to some of my contacts from the Spetsnaz community over in Russia, and none of them came back with, oh yeah, we've shot that, it's been great. So even though there were images circulating on the internet of the Spetsnaz using them, the guys that I know who were in service at the time did not get their hands on one of these, and ultimately it was not officially adopted. But good, solid sounding gun. Looking forward to it. When we get to the range, we'll of course do our trademark What's for Dinner test and see what kind of rounds it runs. Accuracy testing should be fun since we've got a nice long sight radius. Should be easy to do. And then of course we'll also have a comparison video tabletop, and maybe we'll toss in some range time as well, comparing it to the Archon Type B, which is the model currently available in the US. Pretty excited to have my hands on this one. I'm curious if any of you have shot one or handled it. I remember these being leaked. I remember hearing some hype at the SHOT Shows. Never got a chance to shoot one. Never got a chance to really hold one until buying one, unfortunately. But that's the way it is. Arsenal Strike 1. Thanks for watching.